Hey guys, can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
All right,
Sure.
we're recording. I'm here with John Montague, president of the 575 Fools, and I'm John Gottfried. I'm one of the training guys with us of the 575 Fools. We're here today to get to know Todd Edwards a little bit. He's going to teach us a class on situational awareness, and it's actually a close call he was working on. So, uh, Todd, you able to hear me? Okay.
Yeah, I'm good on my end, brother.
Thank you so much for being here today and doing this for us. We obviously have to find new ways to train and give our members quality training. So Todd, I'm looking over your bio here. It seems like you've been in the fire service a little while.
Yeah, just a little while. I started at 16 years old up in Ohio. I actually got to attend a vocational high school, and obviously the vocation I chose was fire service. We had two retired Dayton Fire Department captains. They were our lead instructors. Just basically their goal in life was to see if they could beat the hell out of us every single day on the drill yard, and they did that. And was on the fire department at 16, and my dad was my first fire chief, and just kind of snowballed all the way to Atlanta, Georgia eventually, and spent 30 years in the field there. And now I'm back with Atlanta as the lead instructor for officer development for the city of Atlanta. And then I'm very fortunate, very blessed to get to train and go to conferences all over the country and get to teach. And I get to teach with just an unbelievable group of guys from Pensacola Beach with Chief Isaacson. I get to teach side by side with Ray McCormack and Steve Robertson out of Columbus, Ohio. Just an incredible bunch of guys from all over the place. So I just kind of sit in the background and follow their lead and learn from them every time I get a chance to throw a little something in there. So that's pretty much what I'm doing now. I operate a couple different things, and I know we're kind of talking about some of the things we wanted to hit on. Obviously, I can be found pretty easily. I'm on all the social media outlets. My email, and I just want to shoot that out real. It's actually on my intro page, but my email address is Todd Edwards6 at yahoo.com, and please do not hesitate to reach out to me for anything you need or any questions you may have after this short class. I'm also another program that I do, and I do quite a bit. But one of the other programs that we briefly discussed, me and Jonathan did before we got started taping, was I do a program on city. Well, it's called Breaking Barriers, and what that program is really about is gaining understanding and knowledge of how we deal with both kids and adults with special needs, with a strong focus on both Down syndrome and on, excuse me, I've got out a little bit bad right now, but with the Down syndrome kids and autistic kids and adults, and some of the challenges we face from a communication standpoint, as well as when we're even doing primary search, is it's a different animal, and so we do a program just solely around that alone, and we very interesting how that's come about. We do a lot of things in the community with the special needs community as well.
Wow, Todd, thank you so much, man, for all you've done for the fire service and what you do with the community. Um, Again, I know, a very humble guy in 36 years in the fire service with 30 of it, over 30 in Atlanta. You have something to talk about, and we're really lucky to have you. Um, I know you were also on the scene with an LODD out of the city of Atlanta with Stephen Solomon.
Yeah, this I was actually on duty that day. I was not. I didn't go to the scene until much later. The situation awareness class that we're doing is going to be kind of a shorter version with different focus today. But when I do the entire program, that I've actually entwined the case we'll talk about this afternoon, as well as the Stephen Solomon line of duty death. I was approached immediately after the fire by our fire chief at the time, Dennis Rubin, and was kind of voluntold to put together a program.
Mm-hmm.
We were myself and at the time he's retired as well now, Greg Schenkel. We started teaching this class at the actual site where Stephen was killed, and it was probably the biggest thing I had done up to that point in my career. I was a pretty young captain on the job at that time, and it was an overwhelming situation, obviously, to have a line of duty death within your own organization. And then when I got to the house that night, I was blown away that we actually had a fireman die. At that time, he was in critical condition in a little nothing, 32 by 34 vacant house, and so
Sure.
it really heightened my awareness overall, and it really carried with me throughout my career. It's one of the things that we really teach, and one of the part of the program that we're going to do this afternoon is really about that situational awareness.
Wow. Yeah. Worst day of a firefighter's life is to lose a brother, or being responsible on the scene, being his partner, being on that call. It's a nightmare. I'm sure. You know, we always get lucky. We've all had a few close calls, and we're just wondering how it panned out the way it did. But um, really, really glad that you're here to share all that. We can learn from it.
Well, the part of the program, this is kind of like part two of the program that I kind of redesigned just for this quick little webinar we're doing this afternoon. And this one is directly related to a near miss that I was the incident commander of. And I look back, I still look back today at this fire. And there, unfortunately, we can't do a lot of questions because of taping. But when I do the class live, I have to actually encourage guys to question me because I made some really, really, really bad decisions. So we're going to share the radio traffic from that incident with you guys this afternoon or whenever you guys are listening to this. And there'll be some things that you'll have questions about. Feel free to email me about those. And I'm very open and honest about this fire because of what happened and how close we came to not losing just a fireman, but almost an entire company at again another house fire.
Wow. Well, well, if you're ready, we're more than excited to get started.
Great. Yeah, I'm ready. I'm ready to do this, and we're going to talk about quite a bit of things in a condensed timeline, obviously. But hopefully, everybody that has the opportunity to look at this will, benefit from it, and hopefully learn from my mistakes at the same time. So, situational awareness is really what we're going to focus on, and I don't care if you've been on the job for 1 year or if you've been on the job for 30 years, that awareness on the fire ground cannot be overstated how critical that truly, truly is in keeping yourself safe, your personnel safe. If you're a company officer and you're leading in on the attack team, all those things come into play. And I think as we go through this, you'll kind of see where we're trying to go to. This real quick, if guys want to take a screenshot of that, my phone number, my Facebook page, I have a personal page, and I operate another page strictly for training that I'm constantly putting new stuff on there, new articles, new studies, advertising classes and conferences from instructors from all over the country. And, do not hesitate to reach out to me with your questions or if you need anything. I'm always try to respond within the first, hour of anybody reaching out to me or first couple hours, depending on where I'm at, what I'm doing. So kind of get this thing going. And one of the first things I do, obviously I left this in, but I don't know how it's going to play just on tape, but I think it's important that guys understand just how many decisions we all make every day. And I'm not talking about just at the fire ground. I'm talking about just day to day from the time we get up in the morning till the time we go to bed. And I'll ask Jonathan and John, I guess I do have two students, but what would you ballpark decisions at, Jonathan? Just as a little bit of interaction here. The average person makes every day.
On shift, average a day.
talking about every day. I'm talking about on your off days, even the day. Think about how many decisions you just made since you got off shift this morning.
I'm scatterbrained for a while before I get my mind figured out. I'd probably make at least 20 before lunch.
20? Okay.
Am I going to go to the gym? Am I going to start school? Am I going to procrastinate? It just whatever.
So
I'm married. My wife makes most of my decisions.
So yeah, you got it easier. You've got it easier. My wife just tries to make decisions, but she's in the other room. Hopefully, she can't overhear me. So here's what we make every day. The average person makes over 35,000 decisions every single day of their life. And it seems like a monster number, but if you just think about from the time you get up and decide, am I going to go to the bathroom? Am I going to get dressed first? Am I going to have coffee? Am I going to eat today? Am I going to walk the dogs? Just in your first few hours of the day deciding on what you're going to start the day off as, you're making all these decisions. Now, fortunately for us as human beings, most of these are done subconsciously because these are decisions we make every single day. This does carry actually on the fire ground at times. And for the guys who are listening or going to watch this, if you take a step back and really look at how many decisions you make on the fire ground subconsciously, sometimes even before you even get on the scene, if you know your territory, hydrant location, if it's a specific neighborhood, you're going to know if it's a small house, a big house, what kind of construction you're going to be able to be dealing with, whether it's ordinary wood frame for residential. You're making a lot of decisions subconsciously for your fire ground emergency, and you're not even on the scene yet. So we bring this up because it's important we understand how we all make decisions. No matter how different we all are, whether we're in a big department, small, part-time, volunteer, full-time, all of us face the same exact challenges on the fire ground. I always laugh when I see, and I'm sure some of the guys out there watching, every now and then we'll pull up the Facebook page, hit it hard from the yard.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, and my personal opinion, most of those guys are kind of jerk offs,
yeah.
but they just bash volunteer firemen.
Oh, bad.
But fire doesn't give a crap whether you're a volunteer or full time with some big fire department. It's still the same damn job, no matter what we're doing. So it's interesting when we talk about decision making, and I find it even be more challenging for smaller departments and for guys who are fighting fire on a regular basis. Now your decision making is even more compromised at times because you don't have all the experience that other departments have to fall back on. So decisions are a big deal. Most of them make it basically, what has been termed as the naturalistic decision making process. And we're looking for those critical cues. We're looking to see what kind of smoke we have, what kind of fire we have, what kind of construction, what kind of occupancy. All these things already in our mental makeup from our years of experience, our training, the classes we all take, all start feeding into this decision making process. What's interesting is that if we're successful, we'll make the same decisions for the same type of fire over and over and over and over and over again. If we pull up, I have a one-story wood frame fire on the Charlie side. I've got a hydrant right in the front of the house. We're going to pull a cross leg, and we go in the front door. We find the fire. We knock it down. We're successful. That same fire occurs a month later. We're going to do the same exact thing, and we're going to keep doing that as long as we're being successful. Our brains will work and we'll keep making the same decisions. And again, in the full class, we go into a lot more detail and some other things about decision making, but our instant recall is really what benefits us when we talk about critical cues. And the more experience, the more life experiences we have, the easier decision making can become. Unfortunately, this also sometimes works against us. And this was definitely the case when we talk about this fire we're getting ready to talk about.
Mm.
So I think most of the guys, anybody who's with a Fools group, anybody who listens to podcasts and webinars and goes to training classes, I think kind of have the same belief system altogether. I think all of us are kind of cut from the same cloth.
Mm-hmm.
When I say it's all about them, if you're listening, and please send me an email or call me and I'll debate you all day. If you placing your safety in front of the civilians, then you need to go ahead and move on to some other kind of work because you don't belong in the fire service. Our safety comes before the fire. Our safety comes by wearing, $30,000 worth of protective equipment, arriving on a $500,000 fire truck, hours and hours of classes, hours and hours of training, hours and hours of drills. That's when it's about our safety. When I pull up and I have a 3-year-old trapped on the second floor, that's not time to be worried about my safety. Now it's their safety. And we've got to re-ingrain that with our personnel all over the country. It's all about them. The best way we can stay safe on the fire ground is everything you see listed on the slide: training, education, understanding, and training again. The more you drill, the better you are. The faster you are, the quicker your decisions come, the faster the line comes off the rig and gets into place. One of the interesting classes I get to participate in every year with Kurt Ogson is water on the fire. Everybody, I don't care, volunteer, big, small department, whatever the case is, everybody will agree what makes things better at a fire scene.
Putting water on it.
Putting water on fire. Yeah. And that makes it safer for me, makes it safer for my company, makes it safe for the civilians that are still trapped inside. So again, we're kind of grazing this a little bit on this particular subject matter, but we have to always have that in our mental makeup when we talk about it's all about them and their safety. Our job is extremely dangerous. It always has been. It always will be. I don't care how much they try to make it safe. There's going to be a danger element inside our job. It's a blue collar job. Always has been. Always will be. A lot of fancy degrees and plaques on the walls do not put out fire. Firemen put out fires. So you can have a chief with 800 Ouija boards and the big fancy command vehicles and all that shit. He's not putting out any fire. The guy on the knob, the guy cutting a hole in the roof, the guy forcing injury, the guys in search are the ones making a difference. And we've got to have that in our mental makeup as leaders and as you guys out there start advancing the chain and moving up in your own organization. So I brought this in because the average answer when I ask people or ask my class how many firefighters are killed in the line of duty, the most common answer is that we have 100 guys killed in the line of duty every year. 100 guys killed in the line of duty. That's what's documented. We do have 100 guys, but keep this in mind, and especially this year for 2020, they are listing COVID-19 as line of duty deaths if it's proven they contracted that on the job. So our numbers are going to go up even more this year. So when the 300-pound guy who hasn't busted a sweat in 6 years has a heart attack on a medical call, he's listed as a line of duty death. That's why those numbers run in that 80, 70 to 100 range, because we're logging heart attacks, strokes, vehicle accidents. We're having more and more guys injured and killed operating on the side of the road than we are at house fires. In 2019, this past year, 57 line of duty deaths were documented by the United States Fire Administration. 5 were actually fighting fire. 5 fighting fire. So we gotta educate people about what these numbers really mean. It's not 100 guys are dropping or getting burned up at house fires or falling through floors or being killed in collapses. The majority of our deaths are still heart related. Then we have all these other incidents starting to come out. There is a very strong push right now that cancer may also start getting documented as a line of duty death. It's been found that the firefighter contracted cancer from being on the job. I'm 100% supportive of those numbers because it does give the families benefits. But it's important that fire chiefs and all of us on the line understand how these numbers really play out to us. So when we talk about losing 5 guys in a house fire, or 5 guys overall, the house fires or structure fires, that's a big difference than 100 guys that we're hearing. We're told, oh my God, 100 guys are dying every year. That's total bullshit. 100 guys are dying, but not because of house fires, because of a lot of other things. And this year that number will be, again, I think I've already seen 4 documented cases of COVID-19 line of duty deaths.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big number. I just received notification of a firefighter in Burlington, Kentucky. I'm going there in June to teach a class. I had a member just recently die. He was injured in March at the station. He died recently after a surgery. He's listed as line of duty death, and I'm glad he's being listed that way because it will give his family the benefits. But we need, again, understand the numbers and what they're really about. Injuries, that's a whole other subject matter. We do have a lot of firefighters injured on the fire ground. Sprains and sprains being number one, back injuries. But again, those are details that we'll go into a little more detail in the full program. So let me get you guys started on what we're really going to talk about. And this is a near miss incident, March 25th, 2015. I know it's 5 years ago, but it doesn't change, how everything came about. There's houses that you see in this video on this slide that are all over the country, and everybody's first response districts, large houses, small houses, does not matter. What's interesting or what is disturbing, depending on how you're looking at this was, and I made decisions throughout the course of this incident that I didn't realize I made until I went back and started looking at and listening to the radio traffic, which you'll hear parts of that here in a minute. I didn't even know I was making certain decisions, and it came down to when I was able to really, and it took me a full year to actually start putting this together after the incident. That I didn't know why I made those decisions, and it really boiled down to a lack of situational awareness on my own part, and that probably was more surprising to me because I've been teaching situational awareness and incident command, and I still got caught up in the trap.
Wow.
And that's kind of what we're going to, really harp about, I think, more so than anything else. So let me start you with this. The structure itself, the picture you just saw, this was a 2.5-story balloon frame with a brick veneer exterior. Built in 1924, had 6 bedrooms and 5 baths, 5,995 square feet. This is a large single-family dwelling. It was sold, the last time it sold, it was for over $1.6 million. Slate roof, heavy metal window frames, which, definitely hurt us as far as getting Clark out of the building. Wire, lath, and plaster ceilings and walls. This thing was basically a burn building in a lot of ways. Also, it's set way off the street, up a hill. This played a factor as well, and I didn't realize the factor it played until I went back and listened to some of the radio that we're talking about. This is the Charlie side of the same house, and I know it's kind of hard to see. Can you guys see my cursor okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So this little wing here, and this is where Clark's eventually removed from. I know it's hard to tell from this photo, but this was a older photo prior to the remodel. But this entire thing was slate roof, and that played a little bit of a factor as far as fire development goes, and those type of things. And there's so many little factors involved in this. But if you look at all line of duty deaths, if you look at all near misses, it's not one big giant thing typically. It's usually this little thing stacking on top of this little thing, stacking on top of this little thing. And next thing you know, we have a major disaster or a major incident. So the first unit arrived on scene. Fire conditions were visible fire on the Delta side first floor, heavy smoke on the second floor, moderate to heavy smoke conditions visible from the street. One of the first things that I did different at this fire that I'd never, and I think part of it was just the size of the building. No matter who my officers were, I still went up and did my own personal 360 or a partial 360 myself, even as a battalion chief. I wanted to see as much of the building as I could see. This time I stayed in the street. And I never went near the building. I had an obscure vision of the Alpha and the Delta side. Was about the only part I could really see, just because of the way the house was set off the street. And somebody asked me why I changed my normal routine, and 5 years now, I still can't tell you why my routine changed. This was not like 3:30 in the morning. It was, in the evening time or, early night. And I just don't know why. And I ask myself, even every time I do the class, I always try to ask myself the same questions. I still don't have an answer. So this is obviously the picture you see in the PowerPoint is when things have kind of obviously gone to shit. But I'm going to play a piece of the audio for you right now. Make sure, let me know, guys, if you can't hear it, I can make the adjustments.
Okay.
Here we go.
12 on the scene. Establishing low water command. Got smoke showing. Be out investigating.
12 on scene. Smoke showing. 2216.
Good on volume?
Yeah.
12 on the scene.
Digit 12 on scene. 2216.
Digit 15 on the scene. Level 1. Digit 12. Go ahead and establish some water storage. Go ahead and bring up the skid load. We got a working fire. We got heavy smoke showing on the Delta corner, second story.
Working fire. 2217.
Squad 4 on the scene. Request for 7. Squad 4, go ahead and bring your group up here. Go ahead and get me a primary search of the interior and help engine 12 doctor some holes up here. It's about 200 feet of hose you're going to have to get up here.
So one of the things I always ask in the program of the students is, and I'll let you guys kind of answer this to help this along. Is there anything in particular you guys heard in that small piece of radio traffic that should be sending up some red flags?
Well,
I mean, I think there's a bunch. I mean, heavy smoke. There's a red flag. I mean, you got to work in fire. Another thing would have been, didn't he say it was on the second floor and there was on the first floor? Or am I looking too much into it?
Maybe a little bit too much into it, but he definitely had heavy smoke on the second floor Delta.
Okay.
I think there's
Something else.
obvious challenges. It was far off the roadway. Honestly, it sounded. I didn't hear many red flags. It sounded like they were working.
There, and you just said something that I try to get the students to hear. And one of the main teaching points that I want to make sure that we get across today when we talk about situational awareness, sometimes it's not what is being said, sometimes it's what's not being said, but even more importantly, how it's being said. When I went back and listened to the radio traffic, one of the first things that I picked up on was that, one, I know this officer, and this is not a big, fat, sloppy guy. This is an in-shape, pure fitness guy, and he's out of breath. And that should have set up a red flag to me of, him saying 200 feet is one thing, but putting that puzzle together solely based on how guys sound on the radio is a huge, huge thing that I really want to make sure that everybody that watches this kind of, pay a little bit better, closer attention to your radio traffic, not just on what the guys are saying, but how they're saying it. He's calm. He's doing his job, no doubt about it. He does a fantastic job, and he's a huge part of the rescue at the end of this. But the fact that he's out of breath and me knowing this person should have been another red flag for me. It's one of those things, again, that I miss, and I can't tell you why I missed it. So the next piece of radio traffic, and for the guys who don't know, one of the things we did this incident was on bigger fires, we tend to divide up, into divisions. And so I actually had Chief David Rhodes, who is our lead instructor for smoke divers here in Georgia, and now, apparently throughout the country, it seems like. You're going to hear David Rhodes a couple times during this radio traffic. And these are, again, things that I picked up on after the fact. So this will be me first, and you'll kind of hear me taking command, and we'll kind of go from there.
Tank 5 on the scene, low water. Tank 5 to truck 12. I'm clear. You've assigned the squad to primary. What's your assignment? I'm conducting a 360 of the house right now. I can see heavy fire inside of the Delta side window. We're gonna need somebody to open up their front door. Get somebody to get the jockey to hold up here so we can go ahead and get an interior attack. 15, you got primary fire attack. Engine 12 set up RIT. Engine 19, very fine. We need to be able to pull this 3 inches of this driveway. Come back, grab the 3 inches of head from the driveway. Last unit, you traffic's extremely garbage. Slow it down. Say it again. Engine 15, main assignment. From 12 to command. We got the hose up to the house. We need to go ahead and get it charged up. We'll be ready to take engine squad force working on the door right now. You can also have another group break up a bundle and attach to this other line. We're going to definitely need 2 lines. And then stretch the 3-inch with the water CCU. Engine 15, fire attack. Squad 4, primary search. Engine 12, RIT. Engine 15, receive.
Battalion 3, on scene, assuming safety.
Battalion 3, I need a visual on that Charlie side as soon as you can. Well, the command and Charlie side is clear as the.
So, again, we're making assignments, or I'm reassigning. One of the mistakes, or one of the things that we addressed afterwards, or we need to do a better job addressing in all reality, is we are, as human beings, when we talk about decision making again, we are very visual people. People as a whole make decisions and respond communication wise visually. Engine 12 was actually first on the scene. I changed their assignment from fire attack to rapid intervention solely based on I saw a reserve piece of equipment there. I didn't think it was them. And that I don't want to say it wasn't detrimental to our fire, obviously, but it's kind of that where we start stacking. We start having little things. It didn't make a difference on the initial fire attack whatsoever, but it's one of those things that I went back and looked at and said I should have picked up on when I have units in reserve apparatus, and not trying to identify units solely based on apparatus, but more so on the people assigned to that unit. And again, not a big deal. Something else that in that little piece there, Captain Brown says something when he's updating me, and I missed it. One of the things he asked for was what? Did you guys pick up on that? He said we definitely what?
It broke up a little bit.
Oh, I'm sorry. How about now? Better?
No, I think it broke up during the traffic for a second. I remember him needing help with 3-inch up the driveway. He wanted interior attack. He needed a hose line and some hose bundles. But besides that, I can't recall exactly.
One of the things he said, and again, is one of those moments when I went back and listened. He said we definitely need 2 lines. Remember, my visual is very obscured at this point. I do not know the volume of fire that he is seeing, and that should have been, again, when we start talking about little things, little red flags, that was another red flag I missed. When he asked for 2 lines, I should have picked up on that a little bit quicker and addressed it sooner. We ended up getting 2 lines in, but the way he said it should have been a little more, I should have been a little more in tune with my awareness of the overall fire ground at that moment, just from that simple thing. The next piece is actually Chief Rhodes is on the scene now, and he is going to give a report. He's made his way up the hill, and he's got all the way around to the rear of the house, so you can kind of hear what he says.
Okay.
Truck 15, bring your tools and equipment up. Set it for vertical ventilation, please.
Set up for vertical ventilation.
Safety to command. Safety. Visible fire. Delta side, first floor. Visible fire out the side through the roof, Chief. Can you confirm? That's affirmative. Looks like house is going to be approximately 20% involved. First floor, heavy smoke condition. Second floor, possibly third floor space also. I'm clear. Command to my third engine. Is that engine 19 on the scene yet? We're going to need.
All right, so
Yeah.
the
Y'all went to
first
battle
piece
that
of
day.
say again.
Y'all went to battle that day for sure. I'm
Yeah,
picking up
the
on
first the first little bit of traffic there is me giving truck 15 the assignment to vertically ventilate. As soon as that exited my mouth, fire busted through the roof. Something to keep in mind. I did not know we were dealing with a slate roof at that time. That again, we talk about little red flags. Uh, that was huge. And one of the things we really talked about after this incident was identifying when we had unique roof systems, not your standard shingled roof, but when you have a slate roof, you're also adding thousands and thousands of pounds of weight to a structure that it may not have been originally designed for. He also really emphasized something that actually helped me start. It kind of caught me up is the way David spoke, and when David tells me he doesn't just say heavy smoke, he says heavy smoke. And knowing David, me and David worked hundreds of fires together, so I was very in tune with David's radio traffic and the way he described things.
Yeah, you could
Um,
tell how easy it was for you guys to talk to each other. It was
yeah,
it was like air with chaos going on. It was like air. You could
right.
I definitely I hear Chief Rhodes' concerns, and I also noticed how easy you guys could talk. That's definitely you know definitely from experience.
Yeah, and working a lot together over the years made a huge difference for us, and that really plays a factor later on in the incident. There's a piece in this next piece of radio traffic that you're going to hear something said, and I always leave that open. I don't tell anybody what it is, but it's such a critical factor in when we talk about situational awareness and the way our minds work.
Yeah,
The things that I always tell everybody is these are all top flight crews operating these scenes. This isn't a bunch of scrubs. This isn't like, oh God, we got those guys at that fire. These are all guys that I've been into plenty of fires with, fully trusting their decision making. So it kind of it probably played a bigger factor mentally than I realized, obviously, the night of the fire. But there's a piece in here I want you to hear now. Prior to all this going on, I've already got second alarm on the scene now. I started second pretty early in this incident. Our division chief, which is Chief Christopher Wessels, again,
we got all these big hitters on this fire, man.
yeah, yeah, 25 plus years.
Yeah,
He's on the scene. He's my Alpha division. Rhodey's now my Charlie division. And I want you to listen to this piece of traffic and tell me, maybe see if, the guys watching this will pick up on this.
Alpha Division 2 Command. Go ahead, Alpha. Significant roof collapse Alpha side. We've got the middle and right dormer collapsing into the attic area. Once we make this push, if we don't get it knocked down, we need to think about pulling the crews out of that second floor. Also, send me an engine company, same request. 150 feet inch, 2.5 with a solid tip. I got it. Truck 1, come in. Staging on punch. Charlie Division, Alpha Division. Alpha, go Charlie. Is there another fireplace on the front? Affirmative. We got a fireplace that looks like on the Alpha Bravo. Also looks like a fireplace in the Delta. Charlie Division 19, I need you to put some pressure on that skid load. Command all units, hold your traffic. Command all units, hold your traffic. All units, evacuate the structure. Give me a par. All units out of the building. Give me a par. Division, Charlie Division. Let's start making sure we're getting everybody out. Copy. We got ladders on the Charlie side. We can get the second floor crews out here.
So things have obviously kind of gone in the shitter at this point.
wow.
Prior to the evac order, Chief Wessels, who's Alpha Division, says something. Did you kind of pick up on something he said?
He's one that originally called collapse on Alpha side. He needed solid bore tip, inch recorder up there for rescue. I believe that's what he said.
Okay. One of the things, again, is one of those. I had to play it back to hear it. He says to me, "We need to think about pulling the crews out
Oh, okay. Yeah, I couldn't make of what he said.
if we don't make a push." Yeah, he says that, and when he said that to me, I basically walked maybe 25 yards further down the street and saw the visual that he could see. And as soon as I saw that is when I came back over the radio and ordered the evacuation of the structure, and we went defensive.
So, so,
We,
so I'm on the same page real quick. Again, it's I can hear it well, but it was hard to hear it clearly. There was not a collapse yet.
it wasn't a complete collapse. It was basically on that very first picture I showed, you saw the three dormers at the top of the roof line. Those were starting, and when I say collapse, they didn't fall in, they just were sinking in to the structure, which is, obviously a sign that we're about to lose the entire roof of the building. Earlier on in the radio traffic, and I should have pointed this out, Chief Rhodes tells me that it's two-story with a possible third floor. And it actually was 2.5 stories. The third floor being converted over. So we had basically a 3-story house here.
Yeah, I caught that. I wrote that down. 3 floors of
Yeah.
fire. Sound like 3 floors of fire. Um,
On arrival, more likely we had 3 floors of fire, but we didn't know it at that time because of the balloon framing
right.
and the way the house was so sealed up with the windows, the slate roof. Things weren't presenting quite as quickly as they would at a standard 1-story wood frame type of building. But I think the important thing for people who are taking the class to understand is little cues such as, if it even crosses your mind that we may need to evacuate, there's no more thought process into this now. It's evacuate right now. And it wasn't a long delay there. I think it comes out to like 28 seconds between what he transmits to me and me making the order to evacuate. But the mere fact was that could have been critical. If that thing would have collapsed a little bit differently, or we would have had more substantial collapse. So I always recommend, if it crosses your mind that we need to pull out, pull out. It's not a big deal. It's if it's time to go, it's time to go. We can always go back in, or we can, surround and drown and be done with it.
Yeah, Todd, before you go on, I think, that last audio you played was huge. I think that showed all 3 chiefs the best they had. I mean, really, you guys. I mean, Wessels was like, "Hey, we got something bad about to happen, and I need this, this, and this now." I mean, you talking about being 2 steps ahead. I mean, everyone was 2 steps ahead of something. You kind of controlling that chaos with, "Hey, let's get everybody out. Let's start evacuating." And you're absolutely right. We're just because we regroup doesn't mean we're out of the fight. Doesn't mean we can't go offensive again.
Right.
We got to search. We got to get in there. But we can't kill 10 firefighters because we didn't want to regroup.
Right.
That's a huge takeaway right there.
It is. And I think one of the things, from doing this class now for a while, we make decisions all the time, and the reason that feeds really well into what we're how this whole incident really went sideways. We pull the plug on the incident. We evacuate the structure. We don't even have a scratch on one firefighter. It's a save. Nobody's going to get hurt. Primary searches were done at that point. There's nothing now except the house itself. Now, at this time, where this house is located at in the city of Atlanta, I'm thinking occupied dwelling. That's why we're being so aggressive early on in this fire, trying to get the primaries done. We had no contact with any owners or anybody outside the house saying, "Hey, everybody's out." None of that was going on. So I was still in that offensive mindset.
Yeah, you had 5 bedrooms.
Yeah,
I
a
mean,
lot of area to search. Those guys did an incredible job in clearing the building. One of the things, though, that I found that when we start talking about this is where I start making some decisions that I regretted. Obviously, we are in the habit in the American Fire Service that I don't even know. The best way, we're almost embarrassed if we don't put out the fire to a certain degree. With that pride, that ego factor comes in. We went defensive with multiple deluge sets, a ladder pipe, and hand lines. We went defensive for 55 minutes. So if you take 55 minutes times the gallons of water we're putting on this times the weight of water, we're adding ungodly amounts of weight into a structure that was never designed to take that kind of weight, obviously. One of the things we do in the class, and again, a little bit different in the scenario we're having to do it in with this one, is we do talk a lot about what influences our decisions sometimes. Obviously, in this scenario, one of my biggest influences was the companies I had on the scene. At the end of the day, no matter who's on the scene, me as the incident commander, I'm ultimately responsible for this fire. We discussed whether we should go back in or not. And we decided, because there were certain spots, after all this time had passed on the defensive mode of operation, we still had spot fires we couldn't get to. Everybody watching this, I'm sure including yourself, we have gone offensive, pulled the plug, went defensive, then we always end up finding ourselves doing what? Going back in to go mop up.
yeah.
That's what we did. We ended up going back in to mop up. And the positives of that, prior to me sending the first company back in, is I put Chief Rhodes back in the back, Chief Wessels back in the front. We established a RIT group again. I had crews doing an assessment on the first floor. Clark and his company went up a ground ladder to the second floor. And basically we were checking to see if it was, one, kind of safe, and if we could get to these spots from via different windows and stuff to knock down the rest of this little bit of fire.
Mm-hmm.
What we should have did at the end of this, to be 1,000% transparent, is we should have just kept blowing water and let it go. We found out during this that the house was vacant. It was not even an occupied dwelling. The house was undergoing major renovations, which was actually the cause of the fire. It was during the renovations what probably caused the fire. So at that point, when we talk about situational awareness, always ask this: what am I saving at this point by putting people back in the building? And the answer to that is simple: nothing. There's nothing to save. We've put in thousands upon tens of thousands of gallons of water. This thing has been burning now for over an hour. There's literally nothing to save. We should never even have crossed our minds. And it did. It changed the way we approached a lot of fires after this, solely based on this. So when I start this piece of radio traffic, it's going to start like right now with Chief Rhodes transmitting that we have a firefighter down. Give me 1 second to do something.
Okay.
I got my dogs to shut up, and then my neighbor's dogs started barking.
It's all
So here we go. You guys ready?
ready.
Emergency traffic, glass in the back. I think we got one trapped. I need crews to the rear. I need a stop. RIT team, truck 12, engine 15, report, Charlie side. Got a report of a firefighter down. All units hold your traffic for the Mayday. Radio start ambulance to this location. Radio start ambulance to the location. And the RIT group, truck 12, you are lead on the RIT group. Are you clear on your assignment? Firefighter down, Charlie side. Already in here, trying to make a rescue. Charlie Division Command, do we have Gray on sync? Got another unit coming back to us now. I've got engine 13. I'm moving them up for ALS. Alpha, the truck 10. Let's come to Bill. Truck 10, come Bill. Command radio, I need EMS on emergency back to my location. We got them coming, staff team. Charlie, I've got EMS supervisor also en route back to your location. Engine 13, gather ALS equipment and be prepared to assist. Out for the truck 10, out for the truck 10. Go ahead. Come out with your line. I need your line over in the Charlie side. Come out with your line. Charlie Division, take command. I need a metal cutting saw in the rear. A metal cutting saw to the rear. Command to truck 15. I need your crew to get the metal cutting saw to the Charlie side ASAP. I also need another ground ladder. Copy. Engine 13. 2-year members. 35-foot, 28-foot ground ladder to the Charlie side. Charlie Division to command. I need truck 10 to come out of the structure. I need you to ladder the courtyard and take out this window. Copy. Command truck 10, exit the structure. Exit the structure. I need your assistance on the Charlie side. Exit the structure to move your ladder. I've got truck 10 coming out now. On his way. Copy, truck 15, you are clear on your assignment on the ground ladder, correct? 15 heads salt, Chief. We got the salt. Copy. Command to engine 12. To engine 12. Engine 12. Engine 12. Engine 12. 12, I need you to remain in a position of readiness in case we need to get another line ready to go for rescue. Copy? Engine 12 has another line. We're ready. Alpha Division Superman. Alpha go. Let's get Stokes basket, Charlie side. Stokes basket, Charlie side. Copy. Stokes basket, Charlie side. Command to engine 13. 13, go ahead, Chief. We're in place up here at the bottom of the ladder. Copy.
So I'm going to hold there. The rescue itself, Clark's trapped for a good 13 to 15 minutes. It takes to free him. As soon as they made entry, they'd only been back inside the second floor for maybe less than a minute. And they were checking the stability when it came down top of luckily just him is who got pinned. Another firefighter suffered a severe ankle injury when the collapse occurred. There was a lot of things that went on there that worked well, and a lot of things that we learned a lot of lessons from. I'd been part of a Mayday myself. I managed a Mayday a couple years prior to that. So one of the things that I really harp on when we talk about situational awareness, and I'm a major advocate for training. It drives me nuts when I hear companies not training, because that night that paid off so big when we talk about training. And I credit to those guys. Captain Brown, obviously. Before I could even make sure they were inside, they were already up the ladder going in to get Clark out there.
Wow.
I've got two of the biggest guys on the fire department inside, and they can't move what's on top of Clark Glass. And he's basically pinned in a position that he can't use his radio. We have no access to his air supply. I tell guys during the class that I thank God afterwards that it was Clark that got trapped, because not because I dislike Clark. Clark's a brother, he's a friend of mine, but
He's so
thank
solid.
God it was Clark, because he trains like he's not really even sure if Clark's human.
I don't think he is.
No,
I've
it's
seen,
this guy.
I've seen him do his thing, man.
And it was a good thing. I mean, because Clark could do nothing but lay there and breathe and wait for his brothers to get that crap off of him to get him out of there. He was trapped by large dimension lumber, the slate roof. One of the first things that happened to our composite saw blades was that those metal frames on the windows literally just destroyed the blades. So they were of no use to us whatsoever. As you see on the slide there, 14 minutes to free him. He suffered second and third degree burns requiring skin grafts to both his legs. The other firefighter suffered a severely broken ankle, torn ligaments, the whole 10 yards. To his credit, he never left the building. He stayed inside with that jacked up ankle, trying to help at the rescue. So it really, sometimes, as bad as things were, there were some things that really happened that I'm extremely proud of.
Well, Todd,
yeah, please.
That was a lot. I think the listeners, including myself, wow, we might need a breather. To reiterate a couple things.
Sure.
Wow. First, I guess let me start with how you could tell from the numbers, 14 minutes, and that you had solid crews working. You can't hear them. I'm imagining this scene, as I'm hearing it, like I'm reading a book, and I'm just blown away by the efforts and how beautifully orchestrated you guys, the command staff level, communicated what they needed. And Chief Rhodes, specifically what he needs, he had a plan. He had a heck of a plan, and where do I start? I wrote so much down. From crews just getting crews to the rear, to specifically when you assigned someone lead. You're hitting all the steps. We got to control this. We got to give people the tasks. Wow, and I'm blown away.
Yeah, Todd, do you guys have any kind of I can assume you guys have like an incident command board, but do you guys have any kind of flow chart in front of you, or is that all just off the cuff?
I tell you, one of the things that when we talk about the overall situational awareness is I had kind of closed up shop. And again, this is solely on me. When I say this with with all the humility I can manage, I had checked out of this fire up to the point to where David had said, emergency traffic. I was already, my mind had already started drifting because, again, like I said before, we have gotten away with these type of incidents so many times. And we talk about decision making, we talk about situational awareness. I'm thinking, hey, they're going to go in, they're going to knock down these hot spots, I'm going to turn command over, and we're going to get the hell out of here and go to the next job. And that's where my mind was. And one of the biggest takeaways for me personally as a firefighter and as an incident commander was, you don't check out till you back into the fire station. And again, it's one of those, I don't know why. I don't know why I allowed myself to check out. I'd never done that before. It just again, about stacking and stacking and stacking. The one of the critical components there, one, having those kind of crews, aggressive, trained firefighters, as my battalion and Chief Rhodes' battalion. We had cross-trained together. We had trained probably 9 months prior. We had a vacant apartment complex, and we did all sorts of Mayday and rapid intervention stuff in those buildings for months. So that's where we talk about the training paid off. I think one of the key things that I really harp on with guys, and I've listened to I don't know how many pieces of Mayday traffic over the course of my career and as an instructor. When I told everybody hold traffic for the Mayday, everybody shut up, and it was one of those, I didn't catch it, obviously in the heat of the battle, but when I started listening to the radio traffic over and over and over again, it that did that. When I first say it, and there's that lull, there's nothing being said, and then pretty much the rest of that incident until Clark was freed was me, Chief Rhodes, and Chief Wessel speaking. Nobody else really said a whole lot on the radio. And you've got to have that discipline on the fire ground when you have one of your own
That's
trapped.
what I mean. When I asked if there was some sort of flow chart in front of you, everything just seemed to be like, obviously a Mayday is a very tragic and freaking high speed event, man. But everybody just seemed to be operating at the same frequency. Everybody almost knew when somebody else was going to talk, and they just didn't talk. They didn't interrupt. Wasn't a bunch of stupid radio traffic. It just, it seemed like the Mayday went as good as a Mayday can go.
Yeah, and again, just very fortunate in that case. I did not have a flow chart in front of me. I was literally operating, to be honest, solely based on all the classes we had done and all the training we had done and all the discussions we had had prior to that. I'm a believer in the more I'm doing something, the more you're training on something, the more I'm talking about something, the better we're going to be at it. And it's
Absolutely.
one of those things. God, I wish I just beat that into guys that if you love the job, when you do have something bad happen, things tend to go a lot better if you're into the job. And I wish I could take every firefighter and just beat into them, be into this shit, be into this job. So when the bad night happens, because everybody, I don't care if you're 18 or if you're 58, bad night's going to happen eventually. There's no way around it.
I think we could talk about that topic for a long time. I think you're absolutely right. That was pretty substantial thing you said. If you're into the job, but um, to kind of get back on track, Clark's on the second floor, just hitting hot spots on an inch recorder, probably, or
No, but they'd made entry, just check stability of the second floor. I think his only tool at that time was a hook, and he put his hook up above him, and boom, everything came down top of him. And it happened just like, wasn't any creaking, all of a sudden a crack or a big warning sign. The next morning, after we left the hospital the first time, Brody even said, as soon as they got over the windowsill, he started feeling this wasn't a good idea. And he'd even told me I was just about telling him to come the hell back out when everything went to hell. So it's funny how, we're talking about milliseconds of decision making time. And, on the fire ground, that's what we sometimes have is literally milliseconds to make life and death decisions. And I don't know if that's, really taught well enough in the American Fire Service.
sure. The training y'all did paid off. You could tell.
Huge. It was just a unbelievable huge factor, with him being successfully rescued. What was when they brought him down the ladder, you got him down, they had to force him basically into the basket to bring him down the driveway. As soon as they got to the bottom of the driveway, Clark being Clark basically just leaps out of the thing and walks into the back of the Grady ambulance, who's parked right at the end of the street. And I run up and, brother, you okay? You okay? And he's like, I'm good, Chief. I'm good, Chief, in typical Clark fashion. So I'm relieved. I've got everybody out. Everybody's out of the building now. I've gone full. We're surrounded around this thing until it burned, slapped to the ground. I didn't care at that point. A couple hours later, I got to Grady and got to the ER, and his wife, now his fiance at the time, and I asked how he was. And when she pulled the sheet back, Clark was laying on his stomach in the ER, and she pulled the sheet back, and I saw how severe his burns were. I was devastated. It took me a long time
Sure.
to reconcile that. And
Wow.
I think again, it's one of those parts of the job that we don't. It's one thing to be on the outside looking in, but when you see a friend and a brother that you basically, I tell people this, those scars on the back of Clark's legs every time he takes a shower, every time he's wearing shorts, those belong to me. Those skin graft scars are my scars because that should never happen. I should never put those guys back in that building. I'll say it forever. That was a huge situational awareness, lack of situational awareness mistake on my part as an incident commander. Um, and all three of us, me and Brody and Wessels, talked about it for hour after hour after hour. But at the end of the day, as the incident commander, you're ultimately responsible. And I take responsibility for those things. And I always will because, who am I going to blame? Clark? It wasn't Clark's fault. It was solely Chief Edwards' fault. And that's just one of those things. And when we went back and I started writing out things we learned, obviously the training aspect of Mayday, training on rapid intervention, turned out to be, critical to his survival. One of the things that we invested in immediately after this fire was quality saw blades and not the cheap composite crap anymore. So we, converted all our saws to the diamond tips. And it was, really based on everything that happened that night. One of the things that I learned during the after action review, which was fairly timid, unfortunately, but I did learn some things. One of a senior captain on our job, when they made entry onto the first floor, he said, "Yeah, when I got to the stairs, I had to move scaffolding, rolled the scaffolding out of the way to go up the steps."
Wow.
And I said, "Joey, I just now hearing of this, I did not know." And again, mentally, I'm thinking occupied dwelling, get in there, we got to get searches, we got to put a hit on this. This house was under renovation. So we talked a lot about effective communication. I do that. I talk more about that in the program. Strong command structure was big, having divisions and groups. Obviously, the structure was undergoing this, major renovation. Switching back to the offensive mode of operation was a huge mistake, and nearly resulted in killing not just Clark, but other firefighters as well. Situational awareness, that complacency factor. We do get complacent, and it's one of those things that I never thought of before. I never thought myself of getting complacent at the fire scene, and I did that night. I got complacent, and it never happened again, and would never happen today. And then overall situational awareness is one of the things that we teach a lot now, or I teach a lot of for all our members. I need my rookie firefighter to understand building construction as well as my 20-year veteran does. And those are things that when we talk about um, well, what are we going to train on? Holy crap! I can give you a list of about 8,000 bullet points of things you can be training on because situational awareness is more than just the fire. It's the building. It's the hose lines. It's how we're operating nozzles. It's ventilation versus not ventilation. And that list goes on. That's different subject matter there when we talk about training. But those are some of the things. I mean, there was just a lot of things like that were a lot of lessons learned that night by everybody involved, everybody that was operating, um, everybody that was in command, the officers, everybody learned something. And that, again, the best way to recognize Clark wasn't with medals and ribbons, but by learning from this fire and from the situation.
Yeah, he wouldn't have it any other way.
Oh, no.
He's as diehard as they come. Um, Todd, I'm absolutely blown away. You guys are that night, that crew, that battalion, that team were the definition of of training and putting it into play. You guys definitely um, had the blood, sweat, and tears on the training grounds, and that's why you were successful. So thankful Clark made it out, and I'm so thankful that it's a positive takeaway, and I'm proud to be speaking to you. I mean, to come back to the job for anyone on that fire scene, that's an act of bravery. So, I mean, on Clark's position, yours, Rhodey, I mean, everyone on that fire was affected emotionally somehow. It had to be the scariest thing. And you got these men and women coming back, professionals coming back to get some more. It's incredible.
Yeah, it's true credit to the fire service in a lot of ways. Sometimes, our worst moments can be our best moments.
Sure.
Um, again, it's just, thank God everything worked out the way it did. When I do the full program for guys, obviously we go into more detail about some things, saying there's a lot of questions, and a lot of times I can't even answer the questions because I don't know. I don't know why I made certain decisions. I don't know why I missed certain cues. Um, and it's funny when you compare, and we start off, with a brief, kind of touched on the Stephen Solomon scenario with line of duty death. There was actually comparisons, and we're talking about two totally different types of fires, two totally different types of structures,
Yeah.
but there's actual comparisons with both those fires. And it's an interesting concept when I do the whole program to look at both those and go, wow, and again, it kind of strikes that point about how the small things start stacking up and ends up hurting us at the end. And you kind of can see some of the comparisons. I left this in the program. Training was a huge component, both for and against us on Elm Street, both for and against us on Lawwater. Communications was a major factor in both these fires. Reading the cues we talked about, there was a lot of cues missed on Elm Street. Obviously, a lot of cues missed here with Clark's incident. The ongoing, never-ending size up, I think, is one of those other things that we spent a little more time, talking about in the full program. One of the things, and I don't want to run much longer because I know guys, firemen got, attention span of that big. So, one of the influences on our overall situational awareness that I hope guys will take away from and learn from my experience here is that we have so many demands on our time that we sometimes will blow off a training class. We'll prioritize, a birthday party for, the local kid in the neighborhood versus a 2-hour drill. So we have all these demands on our time, and we're asked to do so much with so little in the American Fire Service that it really becomes incumbent a part of our battalion chiefs and our company officers to really make training our top priority. Sometimes we just got so much. Sometimes there's just so little information, and you think about the fires all of us have been to, where you're really operating in kind of that gray zone. I've got a little bit of information, but I don't have the full picture. So those things, again, we talk about influences. Again, a whole other subject matter. We talk about a new fire service. When we talk about members coming on, how many members come on the fire department now for a paycheck versus being on the job. How much we process, and then we don't have the same volume of fire. When I started with Atlanta, a couple jobs a day was normal. Now a couple jobs a month is even like, wow, we're really busy this month.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not enough fires to gain the same experience. So that's some things we have to combat. And one of my favorites, we always have an excuse. We always are looking to blame somebody else when we're not drilling. We're looking to blame other people. We always have an excuse for why we screwed up. And there's too many excuses. And sometimes we need, spin that mirror around, take a look in the mirror and see if, what we can do to help make our situational awareness stronger and better. My recommendation is, on improving situational awareness is strong after action reviews, remembering that option A may not be an option. You may need option B, and again, in a lot more detail in the class. Having a overall team leadership concept, and that I felt like really worked well at that scene where it wasn't just me, it was the company officers, it was Brody, it was Wessels, it was all of us working together that actually, made that successful at the end. And, keeping educated about, the fire ground being ever changing. My last recommendation, and again, I don't know who all's going to hear this or get to see this. Get outside your four walls of your fire department. It's amazing to me how many guys, join an organization and never go to a class, never go to a conference. And I'm not talking about going down, and I'm not, knocking Gypstick at all. But there's a hell of a lot more to the American Fire Service in the state of Georgia. There's a hell of a lot more to the American Fire Service than Gypstick, or the 3 hour quarterly drill that some people do. There's a lot of new things out in the American Fire Service. Everything from a new strong push, which I'm all on board for, solid bore nozzles versus combination nozzles. There's conferences, there's networking, reading new things. UL just finished up their residential study, just finished up their study on strip malls and ventilation that are out there now. So when we talk about, is there information out there? Yeah, tons of information, but you got to get outside your four walls, attend a conference, go to a class. I mean, eventually all this COVID shouldn't be over with, and we'll be able to come back together.
Right.
And, talk to other instructors, is some of my best advice I can give is get outside those four walls and, talk to other people sometimes. So that's really how I'm kind of closing this. Again, I know it's short, it's condensed. I'm sure guys are going to have questions. I strongly encourage you, if you have questions, if you're interested in the program, reach out to me, and we'll see what we can do to help you.
Todd, thank you. I'll be sure to help get questions to you if we put this on a format that people have that opportunity. And
Sure.
Again, for all the listeners, the first slide was information on Todd's email and phone number as well. A lot of takeaways. The story in itself is there's just so much. So we're real lucky to have you, Todd, and thank you for being so positive, sharing your experiences and the takeaways, and making the fire service better than it was.
Well, I appreciate it. I mean, and again, it's, when I was kind of brushing over about, being into the job, guys I get to work with, Lieutenant Ray McCormack's retiring from FDNY in the next couple of weeks, and he's not going to stop being into the job. Guys that I know are working with small departments are into the job. Guys I know with big city departments are into the job. So it's a big deal. It really is. And I do a program about the importance of training. And it's about being back into the job and getting that buy-in from your guys. And I believe that we are turning the corner in the fire service, and more guys are, buying back into being into the job again, and ignoring that background noise of guys that sit around and spend 90% of their day bitching and moaning about stuff instead of being into the job.
Absolutely. I think that it's part of the recipe for success. Like you said, when something goes bad, it's going to become natural. When you've been training, it's part of you. You believe in the fire service mission. You love your crew. You love your team. You're on board. You're 100% all in. That's part of the recipe. I believe that to my core. And John Montague here, he's the example of that. He started this Fools program. Again, it's been 575 Fools once, and we're just piggybacking, but he's the one who's revisited and getting guys back into training, back into the fire service.
Yeah, that's great. And, that's all it takes. It only takes one guy to get the ball rolling. That guy brings on one guy. That guy brings on two guys. And next thing you know, you got 40 guys into the job again.
Absolutely.
That's a huge difference. That's a huge difference in the fire service, brother.
Yeah. Well, again, thank you. And we'll probably stop recording now, and we can kind of end our closings before.
Okay.
Yeah, but thank you so much.
Yeah, Todd, thank you, man. That was awesome.
Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity, guys. I really do.